Namaste, Adab, good evening. Welcome to another session of Letter T presented by Prabha Ketan Foundation in association with Westland Publication. Prabha Ketan Foundation is dedicated to socio-cultural welfare and humanitarian causes. It is a non-profit trust that promotes arts, culture, literature, and music. Tetati is one such exclusive initiative that allows patrons to engage with legends and stalwarts from the world of literature, words, and performance arts and engage in an enriching conversation. Today's Tetati is a tribute to legendary Urdu poet and lyricist Sahir Ludhianvi, in memory of whom we are launching the diary in the year of Sahir. हम सब और ज्यादातर लोग उन्हें एक फिल्मी शायर की तरह जानते रहे हैं, लेकिन वो सिर्फ शायर ही नहीं थे। वो पल दो पल के शायर नहीं थे, वो जिंदगी के हर पल के शायर थे। वो आज भी मोहब्बत करने वालों के दिलों में बसते हैं। वो दिल जो कहता है, कभी कभी मेरे दिल में ख्याल आता है कि जैसे तुझको बनाया गया है मेरे लिए। तो अब से पहले सितारों में बस रही थी कहीं, तुझे ज़मीं पे बुलाया गया है मेरे लिए। कभी कभी मेरे दिल में ख्याल आता है कि ये बदन ये निगाहें मेरी अमानत है, ये गेसुओं की घनी छाँव है मेरी खातिर, ये होंठ और ये बाहें मेरी अमानत है। कभी कभी मेरे दिल में ख्याल आता है कि जैसे बजती हैं शहनाइयाँ सी राहों में, सुहाग रात है घूंघट उठा रहा हूँ मैं, सिमट रही है तू शर्मा के अपनी बाहों में। कभी कभी मेरे दिल में ख्याल आता है कि जैसे तू मुझे चाहेगी उम्र भर यूं ही, उठेगी मेरी तरफ प्यार की नजर यूं ही। कभी कभी मेरे दिल में ख्याल आता है। लेकिन उन्होंने ये भी लिखा, चलो एक बार फिर से अजनबी बन जाएं हम दोनों। साहिर गरीबों के मजलूमों के शायर थे, तभी तो लिख गए कि एक शहंशाह ने दौलत का सहारा लेकर हम गरीबों की मोहब्बत का उड़ाया है मजाक, मेरी महबूब कहीं और मिलाकर मुझसे। And what he penned 6 decades ago is so very relevant in the social economic context even today. आज किसान कुछ कहना चाहते हैं, लेकिन साहिर ने बहुत पहले उनकी जुबान बनकर कहा था, आज से ए मजदूर किसानों, आज से ए मजदूर किसानों मेरे गीत तुम्हारे हैं, फाका कश हो मेरे जोग बहाक तुम्हारे हैं। जब तक तुम भूखे नंगे हो ये नगमे खामोश न होंगे, जब तक तुम बेआराम हो ये नगमे राहत होश न होंगे। एक बेबाक निडर इंसान जिसमें हुकूमतों को ललकारने का जज्बा था। An avid reader of Karl Marx, he wrote poetry of resistance. He writes in आवाज अदम, दबेगी कब तलक आवाज अदम हम भी देखेंगे, रुकेंगे कब तलक जज्बात बरहम हम भी देखेंगे, चलो यूं ही सही ये जोर पैहम हम भी देखेंगे। साहिर साहिर हर लिहाज में ऐसे शायर थे जो इंसान से मोहब्बत करते थे। उनकी सोच को, उनके फलसफे को समझना है तो जानना होगा कि उन्होंने अपनी कमजोरियों को पहचाना, उन्होंने उन्हें इंसानी फितरत समझा, तभी तो वो चित्रलेखा में लिख सके, ये भोग भी एक तपस्या है तुम त्याग के मारे क्या जानो, अपमान रचयिता का होगा रचना को अगर ठुकराओगे, संसार से भागे फिरते हो भगवान को तुम क्या पाओगे। या फिर काजल में, छू लेने दो नाजुक होठों को, कुछ और नहीं है जाम है ये। उन्हें जितनी मोहब्बत इंसानों से थी उतना ही प्यार प्रकृति से भी था। एक ढलती हुई शाम को नैनीताल की झील के किनारे बैठकर उन्होंने लिखा था, पर्वतों के पेड़ों पर शाम का बसेरा है, सुरमई उजाला है चंपई अंधेरा है, आसमां ने खुश होकर रंग सा बिखेरा है। साहिर एक शाश्वत प्रेमी, एक कट्टर विरोधी, एक अभिव्यंजक प्रकृति प्रेमी और एक गहन लेखक का संगम रहे। उन पर चर्चा हो तो बातें बहुत सी हैं जो हम सुनेंगे नसरीन जी और नम्रता जी से। But as of now, as the world prepares to celebrate the centenary year of Sahir's birth, Nasreen ji has paid a rich tribute in the form of a collectible diary published by Westland. Nasreen Munni Kabir, the guest for the evening, has won the first Woman of Achievement Award in Arts and Culture in 1999 for her promotion of Indian cinema in the UK and became a governor on the board of British Film Institute in 2000, serving a 6-year term. She continues to curate Channel 4's annual Indian cinema season. Her television programs made for Channel 4 TV UK include the series Movie Mahal, In Search of Guru Dutt, follow that star profile of Amitabh Bachchan, and the two-part program The Inner and the Outer World of Shah Rukh Khan. She has also directed a profile on Bismillah Khan and the making of Bombay Dreams, the musical produced by Andrew Lloyd Webber for British TV. In conversation with her is Namrata Joshi, an independent journalist with over 25 years of experience in cinema, entertainment, art, culture, lifestyle, and features beat. She's the winner of India's National Award for Best Film Critic for 2004. She has written monographs on actresses Nutan and Mumtaz for a series Women in Indian Film, edited by Nasreen Munni Kabir. She has done an essay on women technicians in Bollywood for a commemorative volume on women changing India, brought out by Zuban Publishing in collaboration with Banque Nationale de Paris, BNP 2010. I now request Ms. Kartika VK, publisher Westland Publishing, to say a few words on the diary. Ms. Kartika.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here today. You talked about Sahir and writing about love. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people my generation, certainly fell in love through Sahir in some ways, not just with him. And that is really, I think, the crux of this diary as well. It's such a product of love. It's about love. It's about a man who knew love and knew how to write about it. But it's about Nasreen's love for both poetry and Sahir and the meticulous sort of work that went into then converting that into something that all of us can have and keep and treasure. And honestly, as someone who has been in publishing for a while, it's really hard to find that combination of content, which is quite the perfect content that brings together and distills what we want from a person or about a person and their work, and manages to make it something that you will actually use all through the year. I'm hoping, and I've told some of my writers I work with who said to me, we haven't met all of this year. God knows what next year is going to be like. And I've given them a task. I've said to each of them, please open this diary, write randomly on it my name in any of these pages. And on that day, we have an appointment. Forget COVID, forget everything else. We will make a meeting happen. And I think this diary is about optimism as well, coming as it does this year end. We all desperately want 2021 to be a year that we not only look forward to, but actually will end up enjoying and feeling good about things again. And this is the book that we're going to carry through that year with all the hope and optimism and love that all of these verses in it and all the people who've contributed to it have shown for this wonderful man whose centenary we'll soon be celebrating. So, Nasreen, thank you. Thank you for bringing this book to us because it's been such a joy. And shall I share the pleasure of this as well, that we printed the book, we sent it out to the market, and we spent a lot of time discussing the reprint because clearly there's been so much love, outpouring of love and affection for this across social media, across the kind of people that we've talked to and the media that has got copies already and so on, that we know there are many more people out there who want a copy. And today at this sort of first launch, it's such a delight to be able to say, and this is also the occasion for a reprint. Thank you very much. And thank you, Prabha Khaitan Foundation. It's always such a pleasure to partner with people who enjoy what they do and allow us to celebrate what we do. And in that coming together, I hope there's a partnership that will last for a long time. I'm grateful that Namrata is here talking to us and about the book and engaging with Nasreen. I just hope And I know this is going to be a lovely evening and a lovely conversation. So thank you and welcome on behalf of Westland too.
Thank you, Kartika. I now request Ms. Nasreen, Ms. Namrata, and Ms. Kartika to unveil the diary. Thank you. Happy to share with you the diary will be sent to all the SRs, women, and the associates of Prabha Khaitan Foundation. The floor is yours, Namrata, to start the conversation. And I request the audience to sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot to Prabha Khaitan Foundation. Thanks, Kartika. Thanks, Nasreen. It's indeed a pleasure to be having this dialogue with Nasreen today, and for many reasons than one. A, I've known Nasreen for so long now and admired her and her work a lot. B, the diary format itself, like Kartika was saying, that it kind of brings in a certain amount of optimism and joy. I think I felt that when I held it the first time. In a very fractured year, like you said, it's a poet's words are such, I mean, irrespective of whether they're talking about conflict or strife or love and longing or about loss or loneliness, there is something very uplifting about a poetry, the way the words connect with us. And especially when it comes to Sahir himself. And when it comes to the diary format, it's another thing which I've been a great admirer of. Ever since Nasreen herself brought out the diary in 2013 to mark the 100 years of Indian cinema. This is the second time that it has come out, and the only issue that I have, if there is any, is that unlike what Kartika suggested, I just hate to write on that diary. I like to preserve it pristine and pure the way it is. Uh, Before we begin the conversation, just a little bit of house rule, so to speak. We would invite questions, but towards the end of the discussion, maybe 10-15 minutes towards the end. And there is a little Q&A box below in the screen. I would appreciate if you guys can all put your questions there, and keep it as short, terse, and precise as possible. Uh, to kick off the conversation, Nasreen, we were talking about how the diary connected so well with us the minute we picked it up. Sahir's verses. Now, I want to know from you, to kick off this conversation, about what is it about Sahir that connects the most with you? When did you discover him the first time? Can you go back to those memories?
Yes, I'd like, thank you so much, Namita. I'd like to start by thanking the Prabhakitan Foundation and Westland and Kartika for all their support, and especially to Kartika, who said yes the first time we communicated, and was really absolutely all her heart and soul has gone into making sure that everything went so smoothly. And the result, in fact, shows. I think when people do things with the good intentions in their heart, it somehow actually is communicated to others. Now, when you ask about how and when I first heard Sahir and what drew me to him, to be very honest and so on, I think it was obviously Pyasa, because I had seen Pyasa as a young person. In London, it was shown at the cinema here. It was the songs, but the Urdu was difficult, so I didn't find everything, I didn't understand the whole meaning of all his words. But I think he's amazingly romantic in one way, but underneath that is a layer of melancholy. And I think that, in a way, like Keats and certain other poets, that struck me more. And he's not as storytelling as Shailendraji is in his work, but he manages to describe emotions in very simple terms and very effective terms. But there is always a sad ending. The songs are not, you can't call them really happy, other than Sarjotira Chakrai. They're not happy songs. And I think in a way, the romantic songs that we always remember are the sad ones. And when we're sad, that those are the songs we listen to. We won't listen to Disco Divana or something when we're feeling sad. So Sahir really connects to people who are discerning, people who are really caring about the world, but very, very kind of having a tinge of melancholy in the idea of romance.
And he talks about the deeper issues and philosophies of life as well. When I kind of picked up the diary, the first page I landed on was Gulzar Saab talking about manre tu kahe na dheer dhare. I think that is one song which encapsulates life as it is for many of us, and again in the past 9 months has spoken to us so deeply, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. That's the right song for lockdown. That's for sure. It is, Dheer Dhare. But the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is that many people have remarked that actually he had such a mastery over language. So whether it was in Hindi or whether it was in Urdu, he knew how to convey very uh, deep philosophical ideas in simple terms. Now, if he had not the re, mana re, the very fact he has re, it softens the whole thing. It makes it intimate. And that's what was very interesting about him. He always talked to people. He didn't talk down at people and he didn't talk up at people. He talked to them. And that I think, so when Kanika ji was reciting Sahir's poems, you could hear the musicality in the words. You could hear the fact that it's not conversation because it is following the rules of poetry writing, but it has a directness. And that directness, his directness was really draped in the most beautiful vocabulary. But, nothing could be more direct than Abhi na jao chhodkar. It's a very simple statement. But think of the layers in that song.
Mhm. And the romantic bit, the philosophical bit apart, another interesting, and I think what makes him so relevant even today is this humanitarian politics, if I may put it that way. Songs like "Tu Hindu banega na Musalman banega." I think in the times of love jihad, what better lyrics to go to and get inspired from?
Yes. Now, first of all, you have to see Zahir in his time. He was a
Mhm.
man of the 40s and 50s, and his writing was of that era. So he wasn't alone in this way of thinking. There were many like him. There were many Marxist, secular poets working in this whole medium and in poetry and in films. So he was one of them. And the very fact that actually this was Yash Chopra's first film, Dhul Ka Phool, in which the song appears. So you can see he could not have written that song for a director who didn't believe in all this. But I also feel that that the empathy he has for the underdog, for the one who is kind of has very little in life, and he saw them as people economically deprived, and he also saw women, how women are suppressed. So he saw anybody suppressed as he identified with them. And when people have read and know very familiar with his own life story, they see the struggle that he had. You know, the whole story about the fact that he had to, his mother and father did not get on. Father was a very wealthy man and so on. But you could see that his mother took him away and lived separately. When we're talking about the 40s, when women divorcing, women separating from a rich zamindar, I'm sure his mother was a very, very strong woman to do all that. And so he empathized with her. And all his life, even though he had supposedly many romantic connections, he never left his mother because she was abandoned already.
Mhm. Nasreen, again, you were referring to a particular moment in time when a lot of other people were taking to kind of, this kind of thinking, which was a very progressive thinking. This was the time of the progressive writers movement as well. When it comes to, the specific element of the film lyric, because he is a writer, he's a poet, and he's a film lyricist also. uh, uh, that whole bridging the two zones, which could be completely alien, if need be, and yet can come together. What was so special about that, when it comes to Sahir?
Now, when you see Sahir's first song, I mean, you see most of the Urdu poets of that era, whether it was Shailendra or whether it was Kefi Azmi and so on, they had to work in films in order to earn some money. And that was the only place where you earn a bit of money because publishing was not paying that much and so on. And so when well, who does he work with? He works with the Anand brothers. And Chetananand is a very sophisticated man. He's a very educated, sophisticated man. So you can see from the very start, he's not working in a C grade film. He's working with the top guys of that era. And Devanand and S.D. Burman, all these people are very educated, very sophisticated people. So for him to write songs for them was very easy, very easy. Now his first, I think, first song was before that was Thandi Hawaएं, that became the big hit. But then the ghazal that he wrote, Tadbir se bigdi hui taqdeer bana le, for Bazi Ko, that
Bazi.
was the big, very big hit. But it basically means that he is moving in a milieu which is an educated milieu. He is not asked to, lower the tone of his lyrics ever. And then comes along Pyasa and Sadhana and all these films. I don't believe anyone would have told him to lower the tone. It is known that in Pyasa, the song Jinhe Naz Hai Hin Par, which was already existing in his book Talqiyan, the book of poetry, he did change the vocabulary because that was very high flown Urdu, Persianized Urdu, and he made it more Jinhe Naz Hai Hin Par. So some adjustments he made, but he was never told to really, write a song like that would appeal in a vulgar way. They wouldn't have gone to Sahir if they needed that.
Mhm, mhm. So, in a way, the literary element, the poetic element never got compromised. And yet, it wasn't so obscure that it couldn't reach out to the common man. I mean, somehow both were nicely balanced, isn't it?
I will say that the most difficult thing is to appeal to everybody. And you
Mhm.
can only do that if you master something and you speak in a very straightforward language. When you know something very well, Amrita, you say it very simply. If you
Mhm.
don't know it, you will beat around the bush. I always think of it, I'm not plugging it, but I always think of it as the Apple Mac. Now, the Mac is for geniuses and for idiots. And the whole thing is there. It's how you use it. So he was a bit like that, how he used language and in what context. Now, he also knew that, for example, a character, say, let's take Pyasa or Gumrah or whatever, or Waqt, he would write poetry and the lyrics and the song that was really matching the character. So Johnny Walker in Pyasa cannot sing Ye Duniya Agar Mil Bhi Jaye. It's crazy. It would be crazy. So he would sing Sarjo Tera Chakraye. So he would sing something that has one verse that has absolutely to do with socialism, and but the rest is just a fun song. So he knew which character could get away with which point of view. And that he was very, his skill, Shailendra had that skill too. Look at the songs for Raj Kapoor's films, Shailendra's. And he completely in sync with the character, but and elevated the character to be a much more intelligent person because of those songs.
Mhm.
And if you look
Mhm.
at Pyasa, Gurudat doesn't say too much in dialogue. It's the songs that carry his point of view of the world.
Mhm. So, in a way, then language kind of also cuts across from Urdu to Hindi to Hindustani, which quote unquote Hindustani that we associate the film lyric with, because Man Re Tu Kahe Na Dheer Dhare is again very Hindi, and then there is Urdu, which he kind of uh, uh, took forward in a big way. Language would be another hallmark, as I've been kind of getting to hear from you
Yeah.
through this conversation.
The thing is that he obviously the language was a given. That was the basic.
Mhm.
He was a poet and he was very young. He was 23, 24 when he published Dalkia. And a lot of people, especially in the Punjab and so on, who used to study Urdu, became his fans. Like Yash Chopra talks about being his fan from when he was in his 20s. So people grew up in that tradition of these poets mastering the language. And you see, today now we are in a much more hybrid situation. There's a lot more English that is coming into the thing. And if you say the Urdu is kind of easing out, and to some extent, you could say that the difficult words in Urdu have been replaced in a way in English. I may be talking nonsense, but you will often hear people say, "Ye aadmi bahut famous hai." They will not say, "Ye bahut mashhoor hai." In the old days, they would say mashhoor, and now they say famous. And if they say, "Aap kaise feel karte hain?" Before they would say ehsas or some other word, you know. So the I always feel that the words that are Urdu have been replaced by English actually today, and it was a given, Namrita, that he would master the language. Otherwise, he should have been a doctor or something else.
Mhm. But all of it makes me very, very nostalgic for, that era which you spoke of, where it wasn't just one individual, but perhaps a coming together of several literate and literary and, intellectual and progressive people together, the 50s. I think somewhere that comes across as a great ideal decade for Hindi cinema.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Now, that is called the Nehruvian decade, and in which there was nation building, but there was also the challenging of ideas. Some of his songs are very critical. They were not all saying Nehru was doing a great job. There was Chino Arab
Absolutely.
Hamara, Hindustan Hamara, Ghar रहने को घर नहीं है सारा जहां हमारा. It's a very cynical song. It's a very, very sharp song. So you see, he wasn't blindly saying everything is doing well. And that era, there was both, but they could articulate themselves in terms of criticism, which was great. And also, it was a great era for cinema. I mean, I'm sure many people will agree with me, maybe of a certain generation, but that era of cinema was very inventive, very beautiful, and not every film, but there were a lot of very good films.
Mhm, mhm. Again, this makes me go back to something I was kind of looking at, kind of going back to Sahir's works. And again, this comes from a personal space. You may agree or not agree with it, but you mentioned Fir Subah Hogi, then there is Pyasa and Hum Dono. I just find that these films are the ones in which all that kind of Sahir wrote reached out very strongly, and particularly Pyasa. And I'm coming to that because you are a great, you are the Guru Dutt expert for me as well. And there was SD, so wasn't it a collaborative thing, where the director, the composer, and the writer kind of, they all came together to get elevated with each other, elevate each other, because I'm sure what he wrote also, kind of reached out with the way, say, a Guru Dutt used it on screen.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Because the thing is, a film is made by a team. Anyone who said it's just the director is not telling the truth. It's a team. And in Hindi cinema, it's even more so because you've got, it's very fragmented, the creation of a film. You have Sahir who's writing the song, which is carrying the narrative in one way. You have someone else who's writing the dialogue, which is another point of view. You have the cameraman, then you have this playback singer, which is again separating you from the actor. So, where is the real performance? I mean, I remember reading somewhere that Meena Kumari said, if Lataji is singing, we don't need to act. Why? Because there's so much performance in her singing. And the same is true of Rafi Saab. So there's a fragmentation. But that said, it is the director who chooses. He may have 10 pieces of, I don't know, jewelry in front of him. He decides which ones. And Murthy, who was Guru Dutt's cameraman, said Guru Dutt had a jeweler's eye and he knew how to pick the diamonds. Now, we have to say, in some ways, he went to Majroo Saab. His lighter films were Majroo Saab. Now, he knew Sahir's work because he worked with him in Bazi, from Bazi 51. So, therefore, when he was thinking about a poet, first Pyasa's character was written as a draft script and he was supposed to be a painter. And then he decided to be a poet. his great friend Raj Khosla, who was also his assistant and later became a very good director, thanks to Guru Dutt as well, said, use Sahir. Because Sahir, he obviously, Raj Khosla was Punjabi and knew Urdu and brought him Talkhiyan. And in Talkhiyan, they found certain poems and that developed into Pyasa. So, certain things is that the director pulls all this together. And it is, in the end, it's his vision. And that is the vision because he's got the idea. He could have gone to Hasrat Jaipuri, but he didn't. He went to Sahir. And somebody once said to me, the best director is the person who takes the best idea in the room. That's a very important thing. You have to be open to understanding where is the best idea and not think about your ego. Oh my God, that I don't know, that singer told me I should do this and I will not do it. That's not the point. You need to take the best idea in the room. Now, when I was doing this diary, why this diary and why so many people talking in different tones? It's really about taking the best ideas in the room, finding out what everybody experienced of Sahir. I could have just written a book, and from my point of view, that's not really A, it's not very interesting, and B, you get a kaleidoscope, and it's a kind of very light biography of someone. And you get images like Ashaji talks about the way he enters a room wearing his white shirt, his cotton shirt, and his dark trousers and open sandals, and that soft voice. You get the image. Then you have somebody else talk about how he liked, I don't know, playing cards and drinking whiskey. So, so you bring the person alive. So the idea is, Sahir, why today is Sahir relevant? Not only because he touched people through his poetry and his songs, but he was also, Namita, fantastically modern.
Absolutely.
His ideas of romance, unfortunately, the unrequited romance is still reigning strong in the world. So his ideas of Chalo Ek Baar Phir Se is a completely much more real today. And there's a certain cynicism about romance. So his poetry is, or his songs are very relevant. And the language is very modern. It's very modern. I don't know, before Hum Dono, how many conversational songs we had. Like, for example, later there was there was another song with Asha Parekh was singing, Abhi to hum chalte hain.
Acha to hum
That song
chalte
with
hain.
Rajesh Khanna.
Yeah, yeah.
And so on. But Abhi Na Jao Chhodkar, I don't remember any conversational songs before that. And if you remember Hum Dono, it starts with that song. The first song is Abhi Na Jao Chhodkar. So it is basically that song is replacing a scene. And that's a very modern idea, because I mean, people talk about French cinema and about Jacques Demy, les parapluies de Cherbourg, the umbrellas of Cherbourg. He does that. Everything is in verse. So here, Vijayanand is trying that. He's trying to make it in verse.
Which is again going back to how collaborative the whole thing was, of people coming together and doing something which they truly believed in. But you nudged me into the diary format, and I'll move away a bit from Sahir to kind of look at that format, because like I said, I personally am very fond of it, and the 2013 diary still is has a pride of place on my bookshelf, and lying pristine pure, nothing written on it, nothing jotted on it. uh, uh, what is it that is appealing about the format to you? When we talk of Sahir, you spoke about how he was able to reach out to everyone. Is a diary a way of reaching out to everyone? Because there are people like us who may go nostalgic about him, because a lot of our life perhaps resonated in his poetry, and his poetry found an expression for our lives. But there is a lot of younger readers, viewers, who may not be as aware of him. So was the format something like Sahir's poetry, Sahir's lyrics itself,
I'll tell you something interesting. I had approached another publisher before speaking to Kartika, and they said to me, "We're very keen on this idea of the Sahir, but I would like you to make it a notebook." And I said, "No way," because you can't talk about Sahir and have your shopping list on the right hand side of the page. To me, that you may as well not do it. Why a diary? Again, that people said, people are using their phones today, their mobiles. Nobody has a diary. But they didn't get the point. The point was to celebrate his birth centenary, and that's about time passing, time future. So a diary reminds you every week of time. So that is why time. Then some friends said to me, the trouble with your diaries are you can't write in them. So I say very cheekily, look, Sahir has done the writing. What the hell are you going to do? you know. Therefore, it's a cheeky answer, but a diary is something that is a very kind of user friendly, but it's in disguise. It's not for writing. It's
Mm.
symbolic. It's symbolic.
Mhm. How was the journey towards it as well? Because I see so much in it. There are pictures, there are comments, there are long posts, there are, there is even that Atul Dodia, artwork. I mean, there's so much in it. How did you go about collating all of it? Must have taken a long time and intense amount of research for it.
I think I started in about January this year. Then there was lockdown, so everybody was contacted by email. The idea really was to have range. If you
Mhm.
only had film people, that won't be right. I wanted academics. I wanted an artist because I knew Atul really loved Guru Dutt and therefore Pyasa. Therefore, you went to Guru Dutt's sister, Lalita Lajmi, who's a very well known artist, got her to do a drawing. I have to say most humbly that they were people were superb. Nobody said no. Some people took more time, and you had to send many emails and many phone calls and many texts. But in the end, they all delivered, and they were all immediate. It was their heartfelt, and the range was what is important. So if you have a Zakir, you have Zakir Hussain giving you a totally different take on what Sahir is doing with words. Then you have someone like Shankar Mahadevan who tells you exactly what it is to sing a Sahir song. Then you have an academic who analyzes the Sufi element in the Qawwali. You've got to have range, visual, and so on. I was very fortunate to meet a gentleman who also wrote in the diary called Misam Raza, and he is a massive admirer of Sahir Saab. And Misam was wonderful. He showed me his collection, and I explained what I was doing. And he said, yes, go ahead, use my pictures. They have never been seen before. And these pictures were really Sahir Saab's own personal collection. It was in his house, ready to be chucked out to the Raddiwala. As you saw in Pyasa, the Raddiwala is going to collect the poems. It's ironic, but that's the connection. In the end, I'm fortunate that they quite like my work, my previous work, and so people are quite open to the idea of collaborating. So that's
Mhm.
really how it happened. But there were lots of amazing coincidences. Amita, when you read it and you read how I found that Abbas Saab's Parchaiya,
Parchaiya, yeah,
it
yeah.
was like unbelievable how it all fell into place. Then how it fell into place, even Misam Raza fell into place. And various people. Now today, we're talking about with Kartika the reprint. There's a photograph in it, a group photograph of many different people. And then today I discovered from Javed Saab that the little boy in the photograph is Salman Akhtar, Javed Saab's brother. So we can add it to the caption. So it's like it's a journey of discovery, and it's exciting.
Mhm, mhm. I'm going to go back a little about, which something we touched upon, and I thought maybe we could look into a little more, about, the mother and, how strong a woman she was. What about the gender representation in his lyrics? Do you think that somewhere it also owes a lot to, how his mother would have been a very strong influence in his life, uh, determining also the way he looked at women both personally as well as in his poetry.
You're absolutely spot on, Namita, because a song like Aurat Ne Diya Janam Mardon Ko, B.R. Chopra recounts in an interview which he gave to Amin Sayani, which is reproduced in the diary, in which he said he told Sahir the story. Sahir went away, came back the next day and said, put this song in somewhere. And it was Aurat Ne Diya Janam. Now, clearly, he is on the side of women, and he sees to what extent men can be exploitative. Not everyone, but some men can be exploitative, have no respect for women, and basically that what do they give women in exchange of life? Because in the end, it's the woman who gives birth to that man, and then what does he give him? A bazar dia. That means humiliation and no respect, selling them as prostitutes, really, in one form or the other. So it is definitely coming, I think, from his own experience of his mother's struggles. Plus, I'm sure he must have met many strong women in his career, in his work. People talk about Amrita Pritam. She's another very strong individual. People, when you mix in a certain milieu and you are of a certain mindset, you are going to be pretty damn modern in your thinking. And that's another thing about him. Why he's still so modern is because he has modern ideas, and especially about women, and especially about the underprivileged.
What about, I mean, now that you've raised it, the whole, relationship with Amrita Pritam, how much of it has been mythologized? I sometimes wonder, whether it has been rendered larger than life because romance is a thing which comes with its own, attractions, or was she a really strong presence in his life?
When you read her accounts, she speaks of him as a very important person in his life. He has not spoken that much about her, but I would say, and people have asked me, why isn't there more about Amrita Pritam in the diary?
Absolutely.
It's been done so much. And I also tell you, in the end, what matters, at least what matters to me, and in the end, you do what matters to yourself, is your work. It's your work that matters. And it is true that she might have been the inspiration, and others may have been the inspiration for Kabhi Kabhi Mere Dil Mein or Chalo Ek Baar Phir Se. All of this is true, but these are also universal emotional experiences. They're also universal. And sometimes you find that if sexuality, romance is repressed, your articulation in poetry becomes even more heightened. I believe that. I mean, if he had gotten married to whoever and they lived happily ever and worried about their pension, I'm not sure he would have written a song like Chalo Ek Baar Phir Se.
That melancholia that you were talking of, which is the underlining emotion.
The underlining, and it's universal. Because all of us have experienced it. Lost memory of love.
Yeah. And curiously uplifting also. It somehow makes things seem bigger than, and somehow more felt than, I think, things kind of coming to a resolution, so to speak.
Yes, it is being very kind of mature, grown up. That song is a very grown up song. It's like if the relationship's not working and it's becoming a burden, it's better to let it go. And the original poem is called Ek Khoobsurat Mor, which is very difficult to translate. But at some point, when things don't work, you turn away from them, is what the idea of the poem is and the song. And it's very interesting. Whoever is watching us now should watch this song on YouTube. It's fascinating because there's Sunil that's singing this song, and Ashok Kumar is watching as if he hasn't got the whole story. And there's Mala Sinha. And it's amazing because everybody knows what the song is saying. But the story is that the second man, that's Ashok Kumar, shouldn't be knowing. So there's a lot of kind of subterfuge as well in these songs.
Nasreen, there are a lot of questions also now in the Q&A box. So I think I'm just going to go to them a bit and put them, to you. First one is from Swati Sani, which is talking about, how through his ghazals and nazms, he kind of got Urdu literature to a common man, and the literary word was not different from the filmy world in that sense of the term. She wants to know, among the other literary icons who were writing lyrics for films at that time, Sahir's Maqam and Martaba was, as a people's poet, was of another order altogether. In your opinion, what is that one or several qualities that Sahir possessed that the others may have lacked?
I don't think the others lacked it.
Okay.
I think it was just opportunity. How many, it's how many films they got and which ones they got. Like you take Shailendra's work for Raj Kapoor or Guide and Tisri Kasam, West, fantastic.
Mhm.
I don't like comparing and saying, tomatoes and potatoes are the same. People are people. It's just the point of view and the articulation. I think Sahir had caught the imagination. Just like, I mean, the Beatles were not that great, they were not stunning, but they've caught the imagination. And they have something, a charisma in their work that actually you can't define. And I feel that it is today people know Shailendra's work, Majru's work. They do. And Kafi Azmi, they know Waqt Ne Kiya, Kya Hasin Sitam. Everybody knows it. So I don't think that, but maybe it was the combination of the films he also worked in. We have to give it to also the films, B.R. Chopra, um, Gurudutt, and so on. These films have endured. I mean, films of Gurudutt have endured, and the ones with Pyasa in particular. I mean, Pyasa in particular. But I think it's quite unfair to really compare. But of course, it is true what your Swati says. It is absolutely true, Swati, that he had another level. And it was partly because he didn't compromise. People say he didn't compromise. And he did not lower the tone of any of his songs.
Mhm, mhm. Zaid Khan wants you, he's talking about a song of his in the film Kala Patthar, Ek Rasta Hai Zindagi, Jo Tham Gaye To, I think that is the one he's referring to. In your view, were the lyrics influenced and inspired by a specific theme, or was there a particular message that he tried to convey?
I don't think so, but I think the way he thought about life and his philosophy about life was quite. I mean, he didn't change points of view. You know what I mean? The deep feeling was always the same. He had this feeling about the underdog, and he had this feeling about people being of equality, and the same feeling about romance. But I don't believe this particular song that I have to admit I don't know very well because I don't know the later era very well. I don't believe they were inspired by specific themes. Only people talk about Parchaya, the long poem, being inspired by, it was an anti-war, World War II, and the Bengal famine. They say that it was inspired by these two terrible events that he wrote Parchaya. But I don't know about film songs, whether they triggered anything in him. That I can't tell you. I'm sorry, Zed, I can't tell you. I don't know myself.
So, Nasreen, do you think that now that we're talking about that era, Kala Pathar, is there I mean, somewhere around that time, was there, I mean, for the lack of a better word, was there some kind of a fading away happening
Yeah,
when it came to?
absolutely. You know the history of cinema very well, as you know.
Mm,
And the 70s was not a great time for music. There was
mm,
a lot of composers had died, and a lot of lyricists were no longer working, and there was less demand. Plus, it was the era of the word. It was Salim Javed, and their films, much as Javed Sahib is a real poet and his father was a poet, the Diwar and those films did not give that much scope for poetry in the way that the 50s did. So
mhm, mhm,
definitely there was a change of mood towards the song, and by the 80s you can see what's happened to the music by the 80s.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
Really, the poetry is fading out.
What about contemporary lyrics? Do you see, I mean, I'm not saying return of Sahir in a specific way, but do you see inheritors of Sahir in any manner, or a return to those kind of modern ideas and progressive ideas now?
I think that actually you can't really say there's an inherit of Sahil because there's a whole different attitude towards language, the use
Mhm,
of language, the vocabulary, and so on. That is a big change. And there is also one thing we have to say every era and every poet and every writer and creator is of their time.
mhm,
Sahil today writing something like, I don't know, uh, Chalo Ek Baar Phir Se will not seem ring true
mhm,
because now you talk about friendship in romance. So what if you're not together? You can still be friends. So
Mm.
you know what I mean? He's saying, let's break now. So
Mhm.
Khubsurat more and ciao. But
Mhm.
now you can't do that.
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
actually the values have changed, the time has changed. And Sahil was great for his time. Today, the lyricists are good and they are of their time. They cannot be asked, or you can't ask of them to write like the 50s because the world is not like that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
I'd say that that is why people, when you even look at these talent shows, Namita, what are they singing? They're singing the old songs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they have a life, but
Mhm.
it's of the past.
Mhm. Mhm. We were talking about Gurudat, SD, Burman, and Sahir. There's a question from Anup who wants you to dwell a bit on the Sahir and Roshan team.
Yes.
I consider it as one of the most powerful lyrics and music director teams.
Yes, absolutely right. It's actually Anup. He's that combination is my favorite because there is sweetness in it and there's unbelievable poetry. If you think of Barsat Ki Raat and you think of those qawwalis, there are amazing qawwalis, and the layers of understanding of what romance is in that qawwali Na To Karwan Ki Talash Hai is amazing. And I think Roshanji had a sweetness of melody, and Sahi's words are very melodic. So the combination was lovely. Jo wada kiya wo nibhana padega. Apparently, Rajesh Roshan said that out of all the songs that they had written together, that particular song, Jo wada kiya, was Sahir and Roshanji's favorite combination. I mean, as a favorite song goes. And honestly, you can tell absolutely that he was very good with a lot of people, and with Roshanji, the sweet side of him came out, the softness of him.
Mhm. Nasreen, funnily, I was just reminded that, once we conducted a poll within the industry about the most loved Hindi film song. We talked to about 25 directors, composers, lyricists, singers, and Manre was a surprise winner in that poll,
Yes,
Uh,
yes,
uh,
because it talks to you.
it
Amrita,
talks to
it
you.
talks to you.
Yeah.
It really steadies you and stills you. And I
Yeah.
remember that poll that you did, and I remember, and it was Roshanji and Sahib.
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
And
Yeah.
one must say that those songs, and particularly Manre, they gave life to those films. No one would remember that film, Chitralekha, which was not very good, if it wasn't for that song. So you can say those lyricists of that era, not just Sahir, but Shailendra and Majru Saab and everybody, they really extended the life of the titles of those films. And on YouTube, you will see millions of people watching those old songs.
Mhm, mhm. We were referring to the Qawwali. Now there is one about the Barsat Ki Raat, the
Ah,
Ishq Ishq. It's
yes.
such a wonderful Qawwali, philosophical, such wonderful example of Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb with Radha Krishna metaphor in this Qawwali. Uh, Anu wanted you to talk a bit about it.
Well, I can't claim to be what you call it, a complete expert on it, but in one of the writings, you actually have somebody talking about this very Khawali and how he is evoking the fact of these two religions and basically how religion can repress love. And he talks about it whether it is the pandit or whether it's the Maulana, they are both ready to put down love, and the Qawwali is all about that and about the repression of love. So it is an academic called Akbar Haider who's done a lot of work about Sufi writing in Sahir's work, and he talks about this particular Qawwali. So Anup, if you get hold of this diary, please look at Akbar Haider's piece, and he talks specifically about the Sufi element in this song. And it is a Sufi idea rather than just Sahir coming up with it. Or when you have Allah Tero Naam, this was a bhajan that Gandhi ji had rewritten that line. And so Sab Ki De Bhagwan was Gandhi ji's line. It wasn't Sahir's line. He just developed it further. And the same with the Sufi idea, Na To Karwan Ki Talash Hai. So I can only point you towards Akbar's writing because he is more profound than I know how to explain. I can't hear you. Namrata, you're
I think we are ending. We are nearing the end of the session. So one last question I'm taking, which is from an anonymous attendee asking if there was influence of partition in his writings.
Yes and no. It would. I don't know enough about the poetry to know whether it's there. In the film song, don't forget there were not that many films made about the partition. I think there was Chaliya, but I don't think Chaliya and the Garam Hawa Kaifi Saab had written in it. I don't know of many. They must have been in the air, but I don't see him really talking about it directly. Unless this anonymous person knows about these titles, I don't see. There were not that many in Shaheed. I don't remember whether Shaheed was written by Sahir. I don't believe so. I don't think he referred to the partition in that direct way. Again, it would have depended on the film situation. He couldn't have just talked about it. I don't know. No, in Nador, he talks about the building of the nation. That was B.R. Chopra's work. But partition directly, no, I don't believe so.
Thank you so much, Nasreen. I think we will have to bring the session to a close now, though we could have kind of kept on talking about Sahir a bit more. And in the middle somewhere, I was suddenly struck by another song of it, which speaks a lot to me, given the moment that we are in. Aage bhi jaane na tu, piche bhi jaane. जो भी है बस यही एक पल है. And I'm very glad to know that the reprint is already on the day of the launch of the diary. Thanks so much for joining in, Nasreen. Thanks to the Prabha Ketan Foundation.
Always a pleasure, Namita.
It is indeed a pleasure for me. Thank you so much. And thank you, Prabha Ketan Foundation, and thank you, Vartika. Kartika, Kartika, I just can't see her here. Yeah. Right.
Okay, so आज की इस बातचीत से हमारे दिलो दिमाग में जज्बात और एहसासात तरोताजा जरूर हो गए हैं, लेकिन साहिर का सहर कभी ना खत्म होने वाला सहर है. ये वो अफसाना है जिसका अंजाम मुमकिन ही नहीं. तो फिर साहिर ही के अल्फाज में वो अफसाना जिसे अंजाम तक लाना ना हो मुमकिन, उसे एक खूबसूरत मोड़ देकर छोड़ना अच्छा. On behalf of Prabha Ketan Foundation, I would like to thank Nasreen Munni Kabir and Namrata Joshi for an enthralling and enriching conversation. I would also like to thank West End Publications. And last but not the least, I thank the patrons who, with their never-ending support, made this session possible. And in the end, माना कि इस ज़मीं को ना गुलजार कर सके, माना कि इस ज़मीं को ना गुलजार कर सके, कुछ खार कम तो कर गए गुजरे जहां से हम. Shukriya, and thank you for being with us this evening.